I've been playing financial catch-up the past few days, as well as going to war with leviathans both within and without. The leviathans of the capitalistic hamster wheel. It doesn't stop. So I've been noticing myself weaving survival energy and this idea of absolute necessity to working really hard. That I must do X in order to get Y and Z. That if I want to make a certain amount of money, then I have to go to this market, I have to go to this event, I have to do this, I have to do that. I have to control it. I have to use my willpower. I have to impose and decide and take action. Now, these things are not entirely worthless. And in a lot of ways, they are required or useful rather than required. But today I'm at the beach in devotion to my prayer and to my breath. And I'm witnessing how that pattern, this idea, seems to remain bound to material causality purely. While setting aside spirit, transcendence, God, prayer, breath, miracles, magic. I have a gift. My writing is a gift which God has given me, in which I now offer to the world in the form of poetry with my typewriter. And I have a lot of really deep and old programs from the ways that I've worked throughout my life, always on weekends, because the weekends are when the events are happening, the weekends are when people are out and about doing their things. It's when this liquidity is flowing. It's when the water that is money is flowing. And so I must place myself as the bank, as the river bank, near the river, where the money is flowing. I must go to events where there are a lot of people. I must do this in order to have that. And so I have this gift, and something that came through earlier in prayer is do I really want to limit my gift to that paradigm? Do I want to commodify my gift into something that I throw into the hamster wheel? Do I want to keep my offering of my gifts stuck in the hustle, in the bustle, in the urgency, in the patterns which I've convinced myself somewhere in my life are necessary? Or can I simply pray? Pray for God to show me how easy it can get. so that the abundance is not impeded. Abundance is the ease of a seed turning into a tree and bearing fruit. Not once does it struggle, not once does it rush, not once does it force anything. Like I was forcing myself, like driving to these places, putting myself at this street corner and then this one and then that one. May I be prayerfully guided to the ocean rather than the river. Speaking here in metaphor, but I am near the ocean. May I be guided to the waters within. And become the river itself, which very naturally falls and flows into the ocean. I prefer the word flow rather than fall. Streams. So that the river becomes the ocean, and I am water. Now, yesterday, actually, we're gonna go back. It's story time. First, before story time. Yesterday, I worked an event, and there was a bachelorette party. And then one of the friends said, "Oh, can you write a poem about my friend's wedding that's coming up?" I was like, "Yes." So I'm writing the poem about sacred union and being in reverence to the fact that these people are choosing union in their lives. Magnificent. Bringing love into sacred union, mirrored into human beings coming together to create one, to create life. And as I'm writing that poem, I'm in the frequency of union. I'm in the frequency of marriage. Someone comes up and they ask me to write a poem about a wedding they have coming up. Huh. So I wrote those, and they were well received. And the point of me saying that is I've known for a while that weddings are a good place for a typewriter poet, for a man to come offer romantic poetry to people in celebration of love. And as I'm in prayer here, I find myself feeling into that reality. Instead of having to rush to go to the events, having to go online to seek out which events are good, which places are good, where are there going to be people, why not breathe myself into the abundance of my soul and pray myself into a connection with God and Goddess? And call it in. Call in perhaps a wedding, perhaps an event, perhaps a person who has whatever thing going on and they're like, I want a typewriter poet there. Come. Opportunity. Instead of trying to control and to rush and to force my poetry, which itself is my water, the water of my emotions, the water of my heart, the water of my soul, Why not let God and Goddess guide and choose for me where my poetry can flow? It is now story time. I digress for a moment. This is related. Because you see, during the week I had seen, I'm in San Diego, and then up north about 30 minutes, there was a street fair. So I saw the sign for the street fair and I was like, all right, I'm going to this. That's going to be a good spot to do my poems. Get to the street fair, and it's one of those very bureaucratic fairs where I usually show up, I ask for permission to be polite, and they were like, oh, you got to pay $300. And I was like, I'm not paying that. So is the sidewalk public property? And they're like, no, we booked the sidewalk. So I said, fuck that, I'm setting up on the sidewalk. You can send your bureaucrats my way. I have free speech. The sidewalk's public property. I'm defending my freedom here. So up comes one person, as I'm just typing my poetry. Like, donation based, so if people want one for free, they get it for free. If they want to donate, they donate. And the guy comes up with bureaucratic energy. Like, I can feel the entire Leviathan. I'm not going to elaborate on that. We know what we're talking about, right? Like this thing right here is part of that whole system. Concrete. Admittedly, got a little angry. Because he was coming at me with the bureaucratic energy. And so I just said, like, why can't you just leave me be? Like, why can't you just let a free person be free? Why do you have to control and confine and try to impose your false authority upon us? Like, your false authority is nil in face of my sovereignty. Get out of here. If you want to bring the agents in, bring him in. Bring him on. I'm here. I'm standing my ground. And so then a higher up came, the person who runs the event, or like an assistant or whatever, and then explained me the same script. Like, oh, you know, blah, 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 blah. You can't be here. We booked the space. I'm like, no, public sidewalk. You can bring in the cops if you want. And so after some going back and forth, and me declaring my sovereignty, and me declaring to him that I feel the bureaucratic network, which is representative of a system that does not actually exist, that is not rooted in truth, that is not rooted in honesty. And I was pointing out the lies that they were telling me in giving excuses as to why I wasn't allowed, making up that people complained when no one actually complained. And so then the police came. And the police ran the same exact script. And I said the same thing to all three of the emanations of the same force, which was, show me the law that says that this sidewalk is not public property and that my free speech is not protected here, and I will leave. Show it to me in written form, and I will go. Otherwise, I'm staying. And your false threats don't affect me. And so I have the same conversation with the officers. Offices being bureaus, bureaucracy. And at one point, I got to the point where I was like, man, this is so annoying that I might just leave. But right as I was at that point, that's when the cops said that, okay, we just communicated with the people. As long as you're not bothering anyone, as long as you're not doing this, doing that, which is exactly what I was doing. I was not bothering anyone. I was offering poetic gifts. Then you can stay. And I was like, I know I can stay. I am sovereign. And I stayed. And the moment that I stayed, it's like a bunch of people started showing up to my booth, as if they felt that a pillar of sovereignty had remained, a luminosity had stood there, and like, okay, let us be attracted to this true light. Nevertheless, very ungrounding, very annoying, not ease and grace, not true, full, divine abundance of a seed. Well, it is still the abundance of a seed growing to a tree and bearing fruit. But like, I had to fight. And I had just made a video about being the hero of your life and combating the villains. So in some sense, it seems like I manifested, like, all right, bring the villains on and I will face them. But it was so much work. Where I was like, I don't want to have to fight villains. I just want to embody truth. I just want to write poems and not have anyone come to bother me and tell me that I can't do that. I just want to be free. I just want to be with God. The next day, I found out there's an art walk in another part of town. A far better event than the one I was at the day before. And that art walk had been happening at the same time. So while I was fighting on a sidewalk for my right to free speech against the authorities, I could have just been at the art walk had I allowed myself to be guided there. Had I just asked around, had I looked around and felt and witnessed, like, oh, this art walk is here. It wasn't until after that I found out that the art walk was there. The art walk was 4 times as abundant, 4 times as graceful, 4 times as beautiful, 4 times as easy. There was no fighting. I just set up. People were there to witness art. They saw me and my art, and they were like, we want your art. Beautiful, beautiful. So how can I pray? How can I breathe? How can I live slowly? How can I set aside this idea of urgency, this idea that I have to control, that I have to fight for my freedom? And let this be a metaphor for like the ways in which I fight for my freedom in the concrete of the city. How can I just relax and let my peace be of its own accord without having to go to war? Let my peace itself be the thing that dissolves the war, as within, so without. So that the peace magnetizes the proper opportunities which lead to more peacefulness. Instead of a hamster wheel, instead of endless cycles of nervous system constriction and polarity and bureaucrats trying to be like, oh, it's got to be done like this. Can I simply be guided to the opportunities where the water flows with ease? So it appears that this was a necessary part of the journey this weekend. On the day of Saturn, oh my God, this is perfect. The day of Saturn, I was confronted with Saturn. Literally a cop with a 6-pointed star badge, symbolic of Saturn, on his chest, on his heart. And then on Sunday, the day of the sun, where I just got to shine. The sun just abounds, luminous, and provides and nourishes life into its own proliferation, so that flowers may bloom and fruits may abound. Divine perfection, divine perfection. And today is Monday, the day of the moon, the day of the emotional waters. And here I am connecting to the waters, and to the waters of my abundance. I don't understand how God does it. And I don't need to. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to control it. I just need to pray. I just need to align myself with God. You just need to pray. You just need to align yourself with God. Align yourself with the waters of your being. Create containers for the waters of your being to flow. And then ask God to guide you to the places where you can offer that water. And that water is money when you need it. I'm not saying attach yourself to money. Money is liquidity. But it's nevertheless something that we need to operate in this world, to buy food, to buy shelter, to buy this and that. And in some sense to buy, I don't think you need money to buy freedom. But you can override certain limits on your freedom with money in this world. And money is used as a tool to negate freedom in a lot of ways, such that if you have it, you can just I'm not attached to all the things that I've just said, but yeah, the money question has been a big challenge throughout my life. And this is the lesson. Saturn, Sun, Moon. No need to control and control and control and stay stuck within the mechanical chains of causality. Invoke prayer, invoke ritual, invoke breath, invoke the waters of connecting with your emotional being. And then be guided to the places where your water, the water of your gifts, of your creative offerings, of your soul, can be magnetized with the innate reciprocity of being that is immune from the systems of false control, that is immune from authorities that will try to tell you that you can't. You can. And fighting can also be done. But peacefulness can simply be chosen and emanate and dissolve the necessity of fighting, which is the precondition of war itself. So that's the Leviathan that I've been facing within and without. And which I will continue to face as it appears, unless it's dissolved, hereby dissolved, which does seem to be in the power of my prayer, which above all is connected to the power of God. I simply wish to be guided to carry out the will of God and Goddess. And if I am stuck controlling, and I'm constricted, and I'm urgent about it, then that keeps me on the hamster wheel. And I want out of the hamster wheel. So this goes to all things that we do. This isn't just limited to my typewriter poetry. This is a conscious choice that can be made in all creative or business endeavors throughout life. How do I want to show up in life? Do I want to control and confine and fight? Or do I just want to embody peace, abundance, and let God and Goddess handle it all? When I put it like that, the choice seems pretty simple. And then it's about clearing away all of the attachments, all of the wounds, all of the patterns that deceive us into believing that there is a necessity for the hamster wheel in the first place. Just step right off and realize you aren't a hamster, you're a human being and you're multidimensional. And thus, you can fly. Yeah. So, let it be spoken and let it be prayed aloud with you as my witness that I am calling in a wedding which needs a typewriter poet. If that's you, if you're watching this and you need a typewriter poet at your wedding, get in touch with me. You can DM me on Instagram, Astrotheosis, or you can click my, I have a Calendly link for one-on-one calls in the description, and just, we'll set up a call, I'll get an email, we'll figure it out. But also, out in the world, because in some sense, this is still material causality. This is me like, okay, I'm putting it here, whoever sees it, but it's out here in the world, in the realm of synchronicity. I will meet people who are connected to a wedding who need a typewriter poet. And then I can be guided through my own action to create the container, like a website that says wedding typewriter services, that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be like, okay, I must go do this and work the weekends. I can go talk to wedding venues. Hey, I'm a typewriter poet. You let me know. That kind of thing. And so apply this framework to whatever way you conjure liquidity, conjure money in your life. And in the ways that you feel like you're stuck in the hamster wheel, find a creative way out of the wheel by stepping out of it and remembering how to fly. Okay, that's it. Really grateful that this came through. And I'm so grateful to God for the divine perfection of it all. Thank you. Blessings to you. And we'll see you soon.